Chapter 1 Bloodbound Exile. The wind howled through the jagged teeth of the fjords, carrying with it the scent of salt and iron. Grimnir stood at the prow of the longship, his cloak snapping like a banner of defiance against the storm. The sea beneath them churned, black as the god's own wrath, but the warrior's gaze was fixed on the distant shorial land that had once been his home, now a place of exile. The oarsmen chanted in low, guttural tones, their voices blending with the creak of the ship and the distant cry of gulls. Each stroke of the oars was a drumbeat of fate, pulling them closer to the cliffs where the first battle would be fought. Grimnir's fingers tightened around the hilt of his sword, the runes etched into the blade glowing faintly in the dim light. The weapon was more than steel, it was a promise, a bond forged in blood and fire. Behind him, the crew murmured prayers to the All-Father, their voices hushed but fierce. They were outcasts like him, men who had turned their backs on the new god of the cross and the weak kings who bowed to it. The Horn of Odin was their salvation, their last hope to reclaim what had been stolen from them. But the path was treacherous, and the enemies many. As the longship cut through the waves, the first signs of the enemy appeared on the horizon, a fleet of sleek, foreign ships, their sails marked with the sigil of the lion, Arthur's men, the knights of the Round Table, who saw the old ways as heresy, the Horn of Odin as a blasphemy. Grimnir's lips curled into a snarl. They would learn the cost of their arrogance. The first arrow struck the deck with a thud, followed by another, then another. The crew scattered, drawing their weapons as the longship veered sharply, the helmsman's hand steady despite the chaos. Grimnir did not flinch. He had faced worse. The wind carried the shouts of the enemy, their words foreign but their intent clear. With a roar, Grimnir leapt onto the railing, his cloak billowing behind him like the wings of a storm. The first knight to board the ship met his blade with a clash of steel, but the Viking's strike was swift, his fury unmatched. The knight fell, his armor clattering against the deck. Another took his place, and then another. But Grimnir fought like a man possessed, his every movement guided by the old gods. The battle raged, the deck slick with blood, the air thick with the scent of iron and salt. The longship groaned under the weight of the fight, but the crew held firm, their loyalty unshaken. They were Grimnir's men, bound by blood and oath, and they would not falter. As the last of the enemy fell, the wind stilled, and the sea grew calm once more. The longship drifted toward the shore, the cliffs looming before them like the gates of Valhalla. Grimnir wiped the blood from his blade, his breath steady despite the battle. The Horn of Odin was close, could feel it in his bones. But the path ahead was fraught with danger, and the enemies would not rest until they had destroyed it. The crew gathered around him, their faces grim but determined. They had survived the first test, but the true battle was yet to come. Grimnir looked out at the horizon, where the sun dipped low, painting the sky in hues of fire and gold. The gods were watching, and they would not be denied. With a final glance at the shore, Grimnir turned to his men. The quest had only just begun, and the Horn of Odin would be there so they would die trying.